So there are men who were sexually assaulted, and believe it or not, they can be sexually assaulted by other men in the military, and they suffer from PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress syndrome, as a result. So it's not just because of the war, like some women want to think. So it's harder for a guy to admit that he's been raped by another man, I believe. Sexual assault is still a major issue for the military. Reports rose by 10% last year, though there is some discussion about whether that is an increase in the number of assaults or an increased willingness of troops to come forward and report them. That would be an improvement because victims of rape in the military often face retaliation, sometimes even a less than honorable discharge from the military. So this is a picture guy to my right. As he was younger, he pictured of himself that he's holding. Heath Phillips, he says the trauma of being sexually assaulted drove him to alcoholism and to go AWOL. 3 decades later, the military has agreed to upgrade his discharge to honorable. So among those veterans, there has also been a number that is going up, and the people are getting their records corrected to show that they served honorable, in the military, even though they were a victim of the sexual assault. So sexual assault and harassment affects female troops at a higher rate, but because military is still mostly male, it's men who make up a much larger number of victims among the thousands of sexual assaults each year. So women report the crime more than twice as much as men. So this makes Heath Phillips, who speaks publicly about his experience, rare. And the reason why I say what I said earlier is because I feel that men might have a harder time expressing their feelings about what they've been through, especially if they've been sexually assaulted. Because if you're a male and you've been raped by another male, you feel like people are going to look at you another way, or they're going to look down on you, or it's taking something away from who you are as being a man. And so there's a stigma. And so it's very uncomfortable. And then it's reliving that whole humiliation of that all over again. So Phillips was sexually assaulted repeatedly, actually, by a group of sailors right after he joined the Navy. So, a lot of those guys, they're young and they're impressionable, and then they're naive, and they don't know who's all in there, and what kinds of things people will do. And he says he still has nightmares about it. He told NPR in 2016, he says he's 45 years old and he still has that vision in his head about what happened. So he says that the trauma drove him to alcoholism and to go AWOL. And he was kicked out of the Navy in 1989. And with an other than an honorable discharge that he accepted in lieu of court martial. So he was 18 at the time. He was young. He had no clue about the stigma having that discharge would carry. So he was denied jobs. He was denied joining any type of veterans organization, and he was deemed as a bad person, he says. And having that discharge completely barred him from the veteran and fair help. And so that's horrifying, of what a male could experience as he was in the service. So you don't think some of these males that went through this aren't on YouTube, and they have a lot of resentments toward, people, and just in general, it might have traumatized them to the way to where they hold a lot of anger and rage in, and they might even hate, just anybody, and have this deep-seated anger, and they may make videos about how they hate certain people or whatever. So, it's a possibility. Or they may make videos about how they want to hurt people, So I could imagine. But Philip says that he spent 20 years drinking heavily, very heavy, and sometimes he was suicidal. So he got sober in 2009. 2015, the VA finally diagnosed him with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder connected to sexual assault. So, but still in the military, still the military review boards refused 3 separate appeals to change his discharge, even with all of that, after being diagnosed. So then last Wednesday, his lawyer called to say that the 4th appeal was a success finally. So I probably said, oh my God, at least 150 times, he said. The military are finally catching up with the notion that all of this all of this behavior was driven by a post-traumatic stress disorder and the trauma he was experiencing, said his lawyer, Coco Colhane, with the Veteran Advocacy Project. So Colhane says that she has a backlog of hundreds of veterans hoping for an upgrade, but she's hopeful. 2014, a Pentagon memo told discharge review boards to give liberal consideration to vets with PTSD. So last year, Congress made the law required the boards to start reporting how often they give upgrades, and the numbers have shot up or risen. So the boards this year have granted about half of all the appeals to veterans who survived sexual assault. So the only catch is that many veterans don't know things have changed now. So the uptick in the discharge upgrades for sexual assault victims is a positive change, finally, of course. But to few victims that know the odds are now in their favor. So, and then too, some may still feel afraid to come forward. So the few who do may not have the assistance that they need to navigate the bureaucracy and apply for the relief, according to Sarah Dershori, who has investigated the issue for Human Rights Watch. So we will hear from the people from the Vietnam War who still reach out because they want to talk to somebody, but they have no real hope and they're even going to get relief, says Don Chistensen, or Christensen, I said Christensen, with Protect Our Defenders, a group that supports survivors of military sexual assaults. And so Heath Phillips has seen his new upgrade honorable discharge in the email. So the original, after 29 years, will arrive in the mail soon. So the original I am going to post on my wall just so he can reflect on it. It lets me know how strong I was and how he said I could have given up, he says, but he didn't give up. So after all those years, it took him all that time to get recognized for what he had went through. And so see the stigma behind it. So there's some guys that were in the military who were sexually assaulted. And by them being men, it's hard for them to come forward. And so this guy, he said he spent 20 years drinking. It started when he was 18 in the military. He had no clue. And he had a stigma having the discharge, how it would play out. And so he was denied a lot of things. So he went through a whole bunch of things. He said he was even suicidal. And that's got to be hard on a guy, to go through something like that and, have that, haunting and that nightmarish event replay itself in your mind over and over again. And then just think, this guy, he's assaulted by a group of sailors. They took advantage of him. They raped him. So guys can be raped too. And so believe it or not, despite what some people are thinking, there might be guys that haven't told their girlfriends or their wives, or maybe they don't have a girlfriend or a wife because of that. Maybe they're afraid, that people are going to think something about them or whatever. they're going to have to share that story with their significant other, and how embarrassing it would be. And so this guy, he said he went through 20 years of alcoholism, after going through that. And so it took him all that time to get sober. So that's a really sad story. I just thought this was an important thing to bring out because a lot of guys get on here with these egos and they talk all this mess about women, and when they're dealing with their own crap, and they're not all of them are being honest about it. There are some guys who are right out there right now who they make all these videos, but they're not talking about how they got raped, and they won't talk about it. They'll just talk about who they hate, who they want to kill, and all this kind of stuff, who they think should be on the face of the planet, and, and all this kind of stuff. But they're not telling you that they went through some kind of trauma. And that is really why they're saying the crazy stuff that they say and do the crazy stuff. Well, look at Kanye West. I mean, I know he's not talking about rape, but he's saying he's bipolar. And so that might, some people have mental issues, and some people are not honest about it. I mean, at least, he's actually being honest to say that he has those issues, Kanye West. And then, I know it wasn't rape, but still, just think of all the issues that guys might be having that they're not saying, because, the thing is, in American society, oh, you're a man, you're supposed to man up, man up, man up. You're not supposed to share your feelings, because if you share your feelings, you're weak. And that's not true. That's not true. That's not true at all. And so I don't think that some people realize that there are guys that are out there that have went through some traumatic childhood experiences. There's some things they might have went through in their home life, or maybe they were in a foster system, put in different homes. There's a bunch of things that people haven't considered. And so this is going to bring me into the next video. So I'm going to go into another video that's rather disturbing after this one. And I am very scared of this next one I'm going to do. I almost don't even want to talk about it, but there are people out there that you wouldn't believe, put it this way, you wouldn't believe, that have a whole host of serious mental disorders. And they look normal, like nothing's wrong with them. And boy, you do not want to get in a relationship with these people. And it's crazy because they don't look like something's wrong with them, and they know how to hide it. They make it look like they're crazy is normal. But anyway, yeah, so back to this one right here is really sad. This guy went through a whole host of issues. And so if you're looking for this article and you want to read it, it's the two-way, the NPR, and it's more vets who are coping with PTSD from sexual assaults get honorable discharges. And this is the upside of, well, it's sad that they had to go through this, and they had to go through this long of a length of a process to finally be recognized that they actually had. He said it took him 3 decades later. The military has agreed to upgrade his discharge to an honorable. So 3 decades. And this is the guy here, Heath Phillips. So he tells this story, and he was worried about he said that rape victims in the military often face retaliation, sometimes even less than honorable discharge from the military. And so, and yes, women who are in the military also deal with sexual assault and harassment. It affects females troops at a higher rate. And so this happens, and I don't think people realize what some of these people have been through. But this is by Aquill Lawrence. It's a weekend edition. So it's just sad that this had to happen, I was pushing this, trying to see what this is about. But anyway, I'm going to end this video. I really think that this is basically um, what it is it's a video, and it's probably a live feed, like a broadcast about this article. And basically, it's just going to go over what I just said. But with that being said, until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for listening.